If I ask you to picture someone who you believe is successful, the first person to pop into your mind is probably some uber rich, middle-aged white man. Someone like Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or even Jeffrey Bezos. Someone who's bold, intense, someone who was just born knowing that they were right. The kind of person that can say something completely unhinged in a meeting, like, what if we just build a colony on Mars? And instead of people calling them insane, people just slowly nod in agreement, like, yeah, that sounds right. And that's the kind of image we've built around success. Big ideas, big confidence, big personality, as though if you're not at least a little bit intimidating, are you even successful? And I used to accept that, like, yeah, that makes sense. Successful people are just louder, bigger, more intense than the rest of us. But then I started noticing something weird. Some of the people I respected the most in my own life didn't act like that at all. If anything, they were the complete opposite. They weren't even trying to dominate conversations. They weren't jumping in the second there was a pause. They weren't doing that thing where someone says something and they respond immediately, and not because they processed what the person had said, but just because they wanted to have a say in the conversation no matter what. Instead, they pause, which, by the way, is a very useful move. When someone pauses before they speak, everyone suddenly assumes what they're about to say matters. And there's one person I know who made me realize this more than anyone else. And I won't turn this into a dramatic reveal, but I will say he's a senior at this school, and if you know him, you know. He's undeniably one of the smartest people I've ever had the honor to meet. He's the kind of person who understands things immediately. He can explain them perfectly, and somehow makes you feel like your questions are worth asking, no matter how stupid you may think they are. But what truly stands out is that he never tries to prove it. He doesn't correct you when just to show that he can. He doesn't interrupt people when they talk. He doesn't turn conversations into subtle competitions just to see who's better. He just listens. And not the kind of listening where you're waiting for your turn to speak, but the kind where you actually try and process what the other person is saying. And because of that, people trust him. People want to talk to him. People leave conversations with him feeling better about themselves than when they walked in, which is rare. And that's when I started questioning the way that we define success. Because if success is about being impressive, then it should just go to whoever talks the most or whoever sounds the most confident, right? Or whoever says something that makes everyone else nod along, even if they don't fully understand it. But in reality, that's not what happens. The people who have the most impact aren't always going to be the ones performing the most. They're going to be the ones who pay attention the most. And I think that comes down to something that we don't talk about enough: humbleness, which admittedly sounds like a very, very boring word. It feels like something you'd see on a poster plastered next to respect or integrity, or in a school motto, honor, scholarship, and kindness. But real humbleness isn't about being quiet or shrinking yourself down. It's not pretending you don't know things or lacking confidence. It's being fully aware of what you're capable of and not needing to constantly prove it. And being humble is what changes everything. Because when you're not focused on proving yourself, you start learning more. When you're not trying to win and dominate every conversation, you start understanding more. When you're not treating everything as a performance, you become someone people actually want to be around. Being humble makes you more influential, not less, because people don't feel talked at, they feel heard. And when people feel heard, they begin to listen back, which turns out to be a very effective way to have an impact. But we, as a society, sadly don't always reward that. We reward quick answers, strong opinions, and confidence. And again, those things do matter. But when that becomes the only version of success we recognize, we miss out on a whole category of people who are shaping our conversations in quieter ways. So if we go back to that original image, the bold, confident figures we normally associate with success, I don't think it's wrong, it's just incomplete. Success isn't merely about being impressive in the moment. It's about the lingering effect after you leave. The people who stay with you aren't always going to be the ones who speak the most or stand up the fastest. They're the ones who change the way the space feels without forcing it. They make it easier to speak, to think, and to just be there. That kind of impact is quieter, but it ends up lasting much longer. I've started to realize that the people I admire most never try to control every conversation or prove something every time they speak. They're paying attention, they stay present, and they make sure to take what other people say seriously and truly understand what they say. And that changes the dynamic around them. You walk away feeling clearer, not smaller, and that truly sticks. Now, think about someone in your own life who you admire or who you look up to, and you'll end up noticing that they're much more humble than you previously realized. You probably love talking to them, especially because of how much better you feel afterwards. Conversations with humble people also change how you show up the next time. Their actions begin to influence yours. You listen a bit more. You think a little longer before you speak. You begin to value understanding over just having something to say. And that kind of influence does build slowly, but it spreads. And that's what makes me rethink what success actually looks like. Not as something loud or immediately recognizable, but as something that ends up shaping people over time. Because in the end, people aren't going to remember exactly what you said or how confident you sounded in a single moment, but they will remember how they felt around you. And if someone leaves a conversation feeling understood, respected, or even just a little more comfortable being themselves, that's not nothing. It just doesn't look like the version of success we're used to seeing. It's not the loudest voice in the meeting or the boldest idea thrown out without hesitation. Sometimes it's the pause before someone speaks, the person who listens, the one who doesn't need to prove their right to make an impact. And if that's what success can look like, then maybe we've been underestimating it this entire time. Thank you.